Hello everybody, I'm the Drybox Gamer, welcome back to Ghost of Tsushima. We are still collecting stuff, and while we're collecting stuff, I'll continue with the last story that I left off in the last episode. I was going over my role as a DM, and one of those stories was a Manticore story, which I said in the last episode that typically in the book, the Manticore encounter was supposed to be a fight, but I had it where this Manticore was this old lady's pet. Now, later in the quest line, later down the game, the players would have encountered this Manticore again. This time, it would have been beaten and alone. And then a new quest would have popped up where the Manticore went to them for assistance, and when they were to investigate the old lady's house, they would have saw that it was ransacked, it was like trash. Some bandits came by and took her as hostage, and then the quest was going to be that they had to go and save her. Now, I don't remember if we really went and did this quest. I honestly don't remember if we did, because at this part of the story, at this part of the game, we were kind of pressed for time, and a lot of things that I were doing were kind of rushed at this part. And if you're wondering what I mean by that, it's like Christmas was popping up. Like, my time was between, I think, November and December before we had our Christmas holiday and, you know, had a break within D&D. So, yeah, I had a time crunch to deal with, and I think it was getting really close to it. So I either A, scrapped the quest entirely, or B, I had it, like, in the summed up version, which, honestly, the summed up version kind of stuck because the more detailed version was a lot better. So, in the detailed version that I planned, again, I don't remember if we actually did this or if this got scrapped altogether, but you were to find the old lady being held captive at a camp. Again, held by bandits. I'm pretty sure I said in the last episode that bandits are kind of very basic to go with, but they're also very easy to go with. Like, they don't really need much prep time for them. They don't really need any, like, setup. Like, any place in the world could be occupied by a bandit. Lore-wise, though, I tried to give them different reasons for being there and even changing up, like, responses. So, in the game, the orcs, they lost their home basically due to the dragon. However, I made it where some of them have gone power-hungry and kind of psychotic with their takeover. Like, they're becoming brutal assholes. With their defense being that, hey, we're surviving, this is the way of the warrior, we don't care about anybody who gets in our way. And others are like, this is not the way of the warrior. We are not fighting to survive. We are practically becoming thugs. We don't like this shit. And for that, we're out. So there's a big split between the orc tribes, and it kind of makes it hard for them to integrate into society because they're given such a bad rap. I think there were like 3 major encounters where I had a group of orcs being not the bad guy, but being rather either chill out or being victims in their own way.
Banners.
Did we find them all?
I hear rumors that
I think we found them all.
Yarikawa have been fighting the Mongols. Some people say they've changed, but I don't know what to think.
Yarikawa's people honored their Jito when he called for aid. They've sacrificed just as much as we have.
I understand, my lord. The past must never be forgotten, but it is our future that matters most.
Long ago, the warriors of Yarikawa were heroes. With the traitors long dead, they have a chance to prove themselves again.
I think I'm turning these all in, so I'm just gonna let it play out because he talks to us about it, and I can't talk over this dude if people want to hear what he has to say, so I'll zip it for now.
I overheard people talking about Lord Shimura. His survival, like yours, inspires much hope.
Generations ago, my uncle's clan was just a small family of warriors with no lands of their own. Helped him to defeat the Heisuke outlaws who ruled much of the island at the time. Lord Kugewara's sons all died in the conflict, so he arranged for Tokiyasa Shimura to marry his only daughter. After Kugewara himself passed on, his holdings became Clan Shimura's.
A mighty tree grown from a humble acorn. Thank you for that knowledge, Lord Sakai. Your efforts are greatly appreciated. Take care.
Do you think we turn them in 10 by 10? Like, how much are we turning in at a
Yes, my
time?
I must confess, the emblem of Clan Kikuchi is a strange one to me.
It symbolizes the mighty Winter Lords. They say Kikuchi's warriors took comfort from the cold and dark of Kamiagata. They also say living there made them harsh and stubborn. At clan gatherings, they usually kept to themselves. When they didn't, there was often a quarrel that ended in a duel. But when the call went out to gather at Komoda, Lord Kikuchi and his men didn't hesitate to join us.
I admire your honesty, my lord. It's important to remember that even samurai are flesh and blood. I'm glad to have more banners. The banners you've brought are a fitting tribute to all the heroes of Komoda.
Make sure our people remember the fallen.
I'll do more. I'll teach others to honor the samurai by resisting the Mongols to the very end. Please, take this final token to commemorate all you've given to Tsushima and me.
Last one? Huh. Last one. Alright, so getting back to it, like I was saying, is that the book made all the orc encounters to be the bad guy encounters. It's like, okay, yeah, I get ya. But my friend here, he knows his book like the back of his hand. I'm gonna change this shit up, so it kind of, takes him for, like, it's a different turn, so he's not just redoing the same game. So I made it where there's several encounters where, hey, not all orcs are bad orcs. You're gonna run into some that are trying to be good guys, trying to survive, just get on with life. Like, they don't want any trouble. They're not here to bring trouble. They just want to live peacefully. You're gonna run into a few encounters that are like that. One of my favorite encounters was this farm mission that they had to go on to because it was being overrun by bandits. Now, there was one orc out of the whole lot that was a nice orc. Like, he wasn't smart. He was kind of dumb, but he had an affection for the animals, so they brought him along just so that he could play with the animals. And after that, when the players kind of encountered him, and they realized, hey, this guy, he ain't a bad dude. He's just a animal-loving dude. We're not going to kill him. The others, though, were dicks. So they're going to have this encounter like, hey, some of the orcs are cool and some of them aren't. Like, some of them are just being dragged around and others are being forced into this bullshit. I think my favorite encounter was these three orcs that they ran into on the road that were going through like an inventory thing. Like, they're taking supplies from one city to another. But the thing is, these guys were stoner dudes. They were stoner dudes. They're like, hey, what's up, man? We're just taking this stuff from here to there. We got our working permit. Like, we're legit, Just like something along those lines. The group saw no lie in them. They could even tell that these dudes were legitimately running a business, so they let them go. These guys later became a regular in the main town that they hung out at, and every time they had an encounter with these guys, they were just off some bullshit. Not aggressive, but just like philosophical bullshit that I threw in the game just for shits and giggles. Now, you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with the Manticore story? Well, like I said, again, the old lady was captured by a group of bandits, being the orcs, and this time, a lot of the orc group did not want to do this because, from their point of view, they're basically roughing up an old lady. That's kind of fucked, but their leader doesn't give a shit in this case. However, by the time that the group gets there, they can see that the leader is arguing with all the other fucking orcs. Like, he does not have any control on the group anymore. They do not like how he's been mistreating the old lady. And the fucking end game here was that they all turned on his ass, but he had some powerful fucking magic. So it was going to be a team effort between the reformed orcs and the players to bring him down, because he had like a powerful fucking artifact on his ass that really would have fucked them up. So after that they would have beaten him. The elderly lady, she would kind of say, hey, don't punish these guys. They were very nice. They were just lost and confused. They just need a good home and, you know, someone to teach them right from wrong, even though they're fucking adults. But the end result was that she got a new family with them actively taking care of her homestead and taking care of her. And if you're wondering if the Manticore survived, yes, the Manticore survived. Not only did the players took care of the Manticore, they also made sure that the Manticore was healed because they didn't want the Manticore to die. So, yes, the Manticore was very much safe. Again, I don't know if we went through that full version of the story. I think it only got watered down to where they found the group of bandits and they kicked their ass and, you know, the lady was safe and that's it, which kind of sucks because I like the story. It's just I did not, like, kind of press for time. I still had to do the final boss as well, which... Where is this bird fucking taking me? It's going into the fucking house. I don't know where to look inside the house. God, it's gonna drive me up a goddamn wall. Anyway. The final boss, like I said, was sadly rushed because by the time I got to the final boss, it was the last day that I was DMing, so I had to wrap it up real quick. I was figuring things would have gone a lot faster, but they didn't. So I had to rush it just a little bit. However, something did happen that was pretty funny that I wanted to see happen. Where are you taking me, you goddamn bird? Fuck it. So, something did happen during the boss fight that I was kind of hoping for. So, my friend, he asked me about this prior to the game. He said, hey, I want to be a time wizard, and this is the ability that I'm presenting. I know it's a little broken, but I'm wondering if you're cool with it. And I looked over, he says it's basically like the Lucky Feet, just slightly different. And I was like, you know what? It's fine by me. I really don't care. And in fact, because I didn't care, a lot of other broken shit got brought into the game that made it even more easier for them. Something I learned not to do in the next time I DM. But it was fucking fun and hilarious there. This is actually wrapping up into what I'm getting into. So, at the final boss, the creature that I used was actually a creature I made, which I also have to get into. I don't know how to start this. Like, I need a lot of context for this. So, like I was saying, I'll start with the items first, then I'll go into the monsters, and then I'll go to what happened to the final boss. Hopefully, I have enough time. So, one shop that I had in this game was a shop of enchanted shit, and the only price you have to pay is through a game of chance. One of these items was called Chaos Bombs. And Chaos Bombs, I designed to look like a D20. And depending on what you roll, mixed with some force damage, it would give the player an effect. To break it down, the lower you roll, the more useless or negative the effect's going to be against you, then the higher you roll, the opposite. You're going to have more positive, more better outcomes with the roll that you have. Now, D1, originally I was going to decide to say, hey, fuck you, you get fucking incapped. But I was like, yeah, that's a little too extreme. Even if it's a nat 1. I was playing around with it, and I was like, you know what? Nat 1, you get D4 damage from the force, and then you're just knocked prone. That feels a little annoying, but it's not decimating the players. Now, a nat 20 roll, I said, instant win. Instant fucking win. And the reason why was because I was hoping they were going to be used a lot more between point A and point B, but my friend, he kept all of them until the end boss. So, for his turn, he asked if he could roll his Chaos Bombs, and I said it would take one action to throw a handful of them. Not all of them, just a handful. Figuring, like, you know, to keep the chaos from throwing 20 D20s off the board, but also at the same time giving him, like, a good amount to work with. I think I said maybe, like, 4. I said on 4. Like, I think I made him roll, like, hey, use a D4, see how many do you... Or, no, it wasn't a D4, it was a D8. I went to a D8, and he landed on 4. I was like, okay, roll 4. First one, he rolled, I think it was a 12, which a 12 summons a stampede to annoy the fucking enemy. However, it also would not incapacitate, it would render them prone because they got trampled. However, this enemy was immune to being prone, so it didn't really do jack shit. Now, the second roll, I think it was a 17, which is a barrage of arrows that would strike the enemy, which would do a certain amount of damage. I don't remember what we rolled for that roll. I honestly don't. I think we went for a D100 on that shit. And I went with that because, one, I knew this boss had like a shit ton of HP. Like, it had a shit ton of HP. So, even if they did like a max on the D100, it'd still be standing up pretty, much sturdy. It wouldn't be bloody, is what I'm trying to get at. And this is what I'm fucking looking for. The third roll, I think, was a 10, which is a neutral roll. Like, it does force damage, but it doesn't really have much of an effect. It doesn't have anything that's against the enemy, and it has nothing against the player, so it's just like explosive damage, I guess. And probably not D4 force of damage for that. I think it was a little higher now that I think about it. But anyways, that was the third roll. Now on his last roll, he hit a nat 20, which was the instant win. And which was kind of, I was gonna fight it. I was annoyed. We were running out of time, and it was a perfect way to end it. Just, they dealt with the threat. The epilogue played. They're seen as heroes that would start running the guild on this area. I forgot how I narrated the ending, but it's basically that. Now, for the monster itself. See, my friend, like I said, was a time wizard. And I figured that since he's messing with time, kinda, not as constant as you would think, he still messes with time every now and again, which I have to give him some credit. He didn't abuse the ability, but I still wanted to give him something to make it where using the ability a lot might bring some unfavorable company. And that's where I created 3 types of enemies. The first type I called the Fixers, which are these tiny, really pathetic enemies that he could easily fight by himself if he was by himself. Then you had the Hunters, which were more advanced version of said enemy that would act in packs to try to take down their target. And then you would have the Titan, which became the final boss for this campaign. The Titan refuses to work with any of the other temporal enemies. Funny enough, these encounters, they don't happen naturally. I used my friend's time ability as a counter to when this enemy encounter will pop up. So say my friend, he used his ability to its limit. He used it 3 times for the day. He long rests, and then the next day he uses it again. Well, I'm counting that as 4 uses. I would then roll a d12, and if it hits the 12, he gets one of these encounters. Now, say after this encounter he uses the ability again, this would reset. So if he used it once, I would roll. If I hit an 11, he gets another one, but I was never lucky, so he never really got this encounter much. Now, when these encounters were to happen, I would ask the whole group to roll a d4, because there's 4 players in total. Whatever my friend would roll, if anybody else matched his roll, they were with him in this encounter. So it was an encounter in another encounter. However, during this fight, from my friend's perspective, he sees as the whole world freezes. His friends freeze, his enemies freeze, everything just freezes. Except for the temporal enemies that would pop up. Now, the first encounter was scripted where he only encounters the Fixers, as they are the lowest of the low. They're like the easy peasy creatures. Like, they're going to need a good pack to take on one person, is all I'm going to say. And also because, see, the first time that he had this encounter, nobody rolled with him, so he was by himself during this fight. However, they're pathetic, so he got it. From the player's perspective, they would see as he is frozen, having a 1,000-yard stare during the fights. And during the primary fight where they were first in, he then becomes kind of useless. Now, when the others joined him in these temporal fights, I had a rule is that once their fight was done with, once the encounter was done with, they had to make a rule whether they remember the fight or not. Now, originally, I was going to have it where my friend only remembered because he's used to this temporal stuff. But then I thought, you know, this is kind of an anomaly with his own power. I'm going to say he has advantage with the remembering rule because he's used to it. But at the same time, it's affecting him. Well, his friends, whenever they are, you know, in this loop, they would be disadvantaged with, like, there's no consequence to it, really. It was just an added challenge, just for shits and giggles, really. I don't think anybody ever got, like, the rules, and we are out of time. Sorry about that, everybody. I'll see you next time. Take care. Please like and subscribe, and have a great day.